Hey guys, welcome back. So things have escalated here a little bit. I wasn't planning on diving this deep into the car, but we started getting into it, and it was like, we can fix a few other things while we're in here. Oh, we can fix a few other things, and some things we can't afford to do just yet, but we're one thing at a time. We're getting all of the cheap safety fixes out of the way, and got quite a bit done today, surprising amount, all things considered. And I think we'll have the car back on the road here in just another day or two. So it just depends. I need to order a couple of small things. But what started all of this so I think it's been 7, maybe even 8 years ago now that we did the floor pan swap. And that's from the time that we finished it. I mean, it's been almost 10 years ago that we started doing the all-wheel drive swap on this car. Well, there were some things that we did that either we didn't know better at the time, or it was easier to not deal with them at the time. And back then I didn't honestly even anticipate the car coming as far along as it has. I never planned on this being a huge budget build. And so there were some corners that we cut, and I wanted to deal with some of those. But the main reason that we started doing this was because years ago, when we first did the floor pan swap, in order to make the brakes work, we cut the brake lines where they turn 90 degrees when they get back to the back. Actually, it's this way, and we ended up making a new line. So there's 2 lines that come from front to the back. One of them, they both turn this way, come up along here. One of them turns up, goes over the top of the fuel tank to the other side, and the other one comes up and then back down for this wheel. Well, the thing that we did, and it's been fine. Some people freak out about it, but it's been 7 years. We never had an issue with it. Back then, we used compression fittings for the brake lines, and it was fine, but the car's starting to get to a lot higher level now, and I want things to be more, not just DOT legal, but I don't want a tech to not let us run at the drag strip or something. Not that they would look at this, but if I did have a failure, they'd be real ticked at me. So it was like, well, we need to swap those compression fittings out for some double flare stuff. So here's where the stock lines come back in 90, and then that's where we cut them. You can see we've got 2 double flare fittings in there now. One of them's got a short note on it because it was just easier to deal with, and I only had the one. But rest assured, these are all tight. I need to bleed the brakes tomorrow. I will double check and make sure that there's no leaks. I hate how much thread is exposed, but that's the way they're supposed to be, so we'll deal with it. But you're not going to see them anyway. I'm the only one who would have seen this to have an issue with it. But so yeah, one of these goes to this wheel over here, and then the other one wraps up, goes up and over to that wheel. So no more compression fittings. We've got 3 double flare fittings, and yeah, that should be good. And then, of course, you get a case of the while you're in there. This opening here, which the spray bomb is still drying on. So these are the 2 access panels for the fuel pump. Well, because I've got AN stuff on here, you never can get to the last fittings, and also I'm not real happy with the way the wiring runs. You can see I've pulled almost all of this through. This connector doesn't even fit through this opening, so I need to unpin this and pull the wires through and then repin it. I'm going to plug this opening because where the wires come through here is a super huge pain. Anytime you need to drop the tank, the wires are always in the way. So the DSMs, they just have a hole in the access panel up here that the wires run through, and I think I'm going to do that as well because it's a hassle dealing with the wiring being in the way as well when you're trying to drop the tank. It's bad enough the fuel lines are in the way, and you know, we have to undo the e-brake cables because they're always in the way. And not that I have to drop the tank all that often, but, you know, it's one of those, we're in here, we've got the tank out, we might as well do it. I had a really crappy trap door cut, and I would just bend the metal up out of the way anytime I needed to disconnect the fuel pump. But now we've got this in here proper, so I cut a larger hole here, and then I'm going to make a big rectangular cover for this. And that'll make it way easier to deal with anything fuel system related. So that's something that we're doing. This bracket right here, you can kind of see the bolt right there. That was broken years ago, and the bolt broke off, and I never fixed it. Those were just kind of bouncing around. So that's fixed properly now. I put a riv nut in there and a stainless bolt. So these are a lot more secure. I wish these didn't move around as much, so I may end up making one more bracket to hold the lines up here. But once you get to here, I mean, this is secured here and secured here. So it's just this section that's a bit loose, but it's still way more secure than it was. But I'll probably still try to find a way to mount it. And I've got nice line separators now that I have just had on hand for years to try to keep these from touching each other, so that way they don't rub a hole in each other. So yeah, lots of stuff is, well, you know, a little, like 3% less janky. So, but overall, everything looks really good under here for, you know, it's been, like I said, it's been, what, 10 years since we started this conversion, and I don't see any rust or anything forming, so yeah, real happy with that. I still need to fix some of the surface rust back here, but I need a lift. I really need a lift. So maybe eventually, but yeah, tomorrow the plan is, well, I might get to this tonight, but tomorrow the plan is to bleed the brakes, do this if I didn't do it tonight, and then the tank should be ready to go back in at that point. I do need to look at the tank a little bit too. That's something else that's been an issue. So, this tank, I've had issues with this sealing. So, this is an Evo 5 fuel tank. 4, 5, 6 are pretty much all the same. So, this one's been modified, obviously. I used to have 2 of these pump hangers in there, and now I've gone back to a single pump setup with the 525. So I put the factory style siphon back in, and I've got the regular sending unit over here, and redid all of these so the fuel gauge is accurate, as accurate as an Evo fuel gauge can be, considering the stupid design that this thing has. And by stupid, it's the way that this car's set up is 120 ohms is empty and 0 ohms is full for the gauge. So you would think, oh yeah, 60 ohms and 60 ohms, right? Nope, that's 40 ohms and that's 80. So that's the reason why Evo fuel gauges are never accurate, and people say, oh, they bounce around so weird. Like the gauge is like, it's the first half tank lasts forever and the bottom half a tank goes super fast. Well, yeah, it's because one side of this gets drained and it's not pulling from the other side, or fuel sloshes around when you go around corner. And because these aren't an even resistance, the gauge moves around, because there's never going to be equal amounts of fuel on each side of this tank, because only one side has a pump. And the siphon is powered by the fuel return, so it's not super accurate, and plus it's all based on orifices for the size of the flow and the flow of the pump. So if you have to get the orifice size in the siphon just right in order for the tank to behave like stock. Most of you guys, if you're into Evos, you've probably drilled out the stock siphon for, a bigger fuel pump, so you probably already know. But yeah, so it's not an accurate setup. And I've had issues with this setup anyway, because as you can see, there's a lot of surface rust on this side of the tank, but none over here. I cannot make this thing seal for anything. This side seals fine, Both of the gaskets are the same age. This side has never sealed. And I've got the 6 bolts on here so tight that I'm worried that I'm going to break one of the studs off. And it still leaks. So anytime I've got a full tank of fuel, E85 smell. So, and it's like, oh yeah, top of the tank's wet. We're leaking fuel. That's not ideal. But yeah, I've got plans in the works for this. I'm going to try to take this off while the tank's out of the car. Maybe I can try to clean the surface up a little bit. It's not rusty, so I don't know why it doesn't want to seal. It just doesn't want to seal. So it's if you're curious, it's the same gasket that the 2nd gen DSM uses. In fact, this is the same, I want to say, as the 2nd gen DSM siphon. So yeah, if you ever need to know that, there you go. This is unique though. I need to do a proper fuel tank vent too. That's something else that's on my list of things to take care of that I just never got around to. Really need to switch these for PTFE. Yeah, that is crispy. Not rated for ethanol, but we're just gonna ignore that. Because yeah, again, stuff's expensive. We can do a few things at a time. I really wish we could afford to revamp the whole fuel system while it's out, but it'd be setting apart if I did that. So we're just gonna try to make that seal as best we can, and then get these brakes bled, and yeah, hopefully I'll have it mostly back together, if not completely back together, tomorrow. It only took me a night to get this apart. So I've got 3 fresh bottles of RBF 600. The old stuff has been in there since we did the swap. And actually, I still have half a bottle of it. Oops, that was a caulk tube. Still have half a bottle of it, the old label. And yeah, she's a little old. This went bad. What, 9 years ago? Probably should deal with that, but I mean, I have a brake fluid tester here. This stuff is super hygroscopic, but it actually still shows under 2% water content. Usually on the brake fluid tester, was it? Yeah, it's right here at 1%. So still in the okay range. So good enough. I'm not going to put that stuff back in this car, but we'll keep it around for like Hannah's Forester or my Miata or something. It's definitely better than the stuff that's in there, because I guarantee you that stuff's never been changed either. So, but this brake fluid is very burnt, so it needs done. It's dark brown now. These have seen some heat cycles. So, and the brake system's pretty built on this car. I'm kind of proud of it. I did a lot of work and a lot of research on what to do to make this thing have really high temperature thresholds, and I actually had to downgrade some of it because it was too much. The lockup was just way too hard, given the width of the tires. Even the 200 tread wear of these RT615K pluses is easily overwhelmed by the braking setup that I had. So we changed to a slightly less aggressive pad, and that's helped a lot. So so we've got the VR4 inch and 1/8 master cylinder versus the standard Evo 1-inch one. So that's an upgrade. We've got no ABS. We've got the standard Mirage proportioning valve, which actually is perfect. We've got the Evo front Brembos and rear Brembos. The rear rotors need changed. I need to do that at some point. They're fine, but they're not flat. There's ridges here that are pretty pronounced. But, you know, they see some heat cycles. So these are still drilled and slotted. These are from when I originally did this car. I mean, these rotors are 8 or 9 years old. So that needs changed. The front I've already done because I actually had some cracks forming on the drills. I will not be doing drilled and slotted again. At the time I thought it was really cool and it's an upgrade, but Yeah, I didn't really understand the metallurgy back then, and when you drill steel, it gets hot. And when you hot spot steel, it creates hard spots. And as the rotors wear, the hard spots create high spots. And as you're clamping them, as the rotors wear in and as they get really hot, those will start to form cracks. So we don't really want to have a rotor cracking, but we're still okay. I don't see any issues here. So other than it's got a lip, so it's time to change them. But yeah, so the new setup is Centric Premiums, just the blanks. They are a really great rotor. They have good warping resistance. I've had really good luck with them on several different cars. We run StopTech Sport pads. Again, the RBF 600 brake fluid. One of the trick things that I did to this, though, is I have Gyrodisc titanium shims between the pads and the pistons of the caliper. I don't think you can see them in there. Yeah, no, you can't see them in there. But there's a, well, that might be. Oh, yeah, you can. It's right here. It's this little lip. Those are titanium shims. And what they do, titanium does not transfer heat well. So it kind of blocks heat from the pads from pouring into the steel pistons of the calipers. And it prevents a lot of heat transfer into the brake fluid. But it's not perfect, obviously, because we still bake the fluid. But real racing brakes, they use titanium pistons, which if I could find a machinist who would be willing to do it, and not for an absolute crazy amount of money, I would love to have titanium pistons machined for these calipers to do a rebuild, because that would really step up their braking ability without cooking. But they do the job. They do the job really well for what we do, so I'm happy with them for now. But, oh yeah, and HEL stainless steel braided lines. I really want to do, well, I don't need to. I really don't need to, so I don't know when I would do this because I don't have money to burn. But if I did, I would love to put dry brakes on each of these just to make servicing stuff easier. And I really need to... this is something I will do. I need to get these repowder coated at some point. These look fine, but the fronts do not. Also, something I learned is somebody apparently makes titanium bleed screws for these. And yes, I want those. That would be so nice. If you have ever broken off a bleed screw at a caliper, you can appreciate why that would be nice. So... let's see what else. Oh yeah, there's some other stuff that I've done here. Where did I put it? It's laying around here somewhere. This is all my collection of factory hardware from random vehicles. This is a super garbage flaring kit from Menards. Don't use it. We used a rigid one, and I need it. It was super nice. This is my rigid tube cutter, though. So at least I have that. Man, where did I put the... Somewhere... Oh, there it is. So, this is was my fuel pump relay. Yeah, that's... Yep, and if you can probably guess, the yellow and the blue wires were the pump wires. Not great. Now, let me pull this apart. The relay actually is fine. That's, yeah, well, yeah, it's not great, that's what I'm saying. So, we decided, oh, this is, let me see here, what, 40 amps at 14 volts? Yeah, I think that's the right one. 30 or 40, either way, whichever measurement is the right one. It was, honestly, that was enough relay, but the problem with it is those spade terminals. They create a ton of resistance. And they suck. So, you know, because it's what I do. I need paint drying here. We decided to go a little overkill. Yep, that's a 200 amp relay. It's like 3 times the size of the other one, and it uses lugs instead of spade terminals. Already finished wiring this, other than the wire that goes from the lug that's on the top there over to the pump. Everything else is ready to go. So as soon as I finish this tomorrow, make the new plate, that will be real nice. And then I gotta pull the wiring out of the panel there. But yeah, you can see here how much of a gap there still is. So, and there was a fitting right here that I just could never get to. And it was a huge pain. I'll show you the panel that I cut out. Let me find it here. Yeah, so this is what I had. And yeah, so I would always just bend this really garbage looking thing up out of the way. So I could undo one fitting, and the wiring barely fit through everything, and I could barely get onto that fitting with this. So I decided, hey, let's make my life easier, because that is my whole ethos for modifying this car. When I do a mod, it's always, well, sometimes, yes, to make the car faster and more fun, but my biggest thing for modding this, I know I'm never going to be the fastest person out there. I want to enjoy working on this car because it needs work. When, you're always going to have to do maintenance on this kind of thing. And if it sucks to do maintenance on, what are you even doing? That's no fun. I don't want to spend my time, being angry and throwing tools because I can't get some bolt out or in or something stupid. So we just cut all of this out, and we'll make a slightly wider, that's where that goes, in the trash, a slightly wider panel. I've got more of these plastic screw hole things, so we'll do 2 more holes over here, make a big rectangular panel that's bent to fit, and yeah, that'll be nice. It'll be real easy to access all that stuff. And yeah, we'll just pretend that square hole is perfectly straight, and I didn't just do that with the angle grinder. I did file it. Hey, that's something. It's smooth edges mostly. But yeah, no, I'm doing the best I can to do this right with the tools that I have and the amount of patience that I possess, which is probably the determining factor for some of this stuff. But oh, and my pocketbook, which is very limited. So but yeah, so tomorrow I need to, if I didn't already, like I said, depin that 6-pin. That's actually from a 2nd gen DSM. It's the same connector for the fuel pump housing, 2nd gen DSM connector. All-wheel drive only. The GSX connector for the fuel pump is different from the, was it the GST? Yeah, is the front wheel drive. It's different because the fuel tank's different. So keep that in mind. If you are looking for one of those connectors for your Evo 4 to 6 2nd gen DSM GSX, uses the same pigtail. But yeah, so I need to unpin that so I can fit it through that hole because it does not fit. And then we're going to run that in from the top to access those connectors instead. And probably what I'll do is I may even just keep that panel and then make it a second panel to go right here. And then that one I'll probably drill the hole in for that original grommet. And then, yeah, we'll plug the other hole, and that should be good. So the other project that I really want to do that I can't really afford to do right now to this is I really want to change this whole fuel setup up. I'm just not super happy with the fuel gauge, and also this pump housing is too small. It's physically impossible to get 2 fuel pumps on one side like it is with the Evo 7, 8, and 9 tanks. You will not see a double pumper that fits one of these tanks because two pumps do not physically fit in that hole. So there's enough flat surface area here. I want to remove this. I want to go to a 12-bolt fuel cell style pump hanger, and then just drill I'll set the pump hanger down, center it, drill the 12 holes, and then use a negative, which is standard for fuel cells. Usually they just have the holes in them. Then you use a negative that has studs from underneath, and then bolt that down. There's enough flat surface area here I can do that. It'd be super easy. It's really cheap to do. There's a handful of 12-bolt ones that are on eBay that are less than $200 that are billet that look really nice. with vertical adjustment so that you can set the depth for the pump perfectly. Do everything fuel cell style. I probably put a Holley fuel mat down on each side, maybe even, so that I don't have to worry about starvation if the fuel gets low. It'd be super, super nice. When I redo the fuel vent, and then also I really want to ditch the stupid mismatched resistance fuel gauge sending units. And I'd like to drill additional holes on each side and go to a GM style one. The only problem is right now I can't find any that add up to 120 ohms. It seems like everything GM is 0 to 90, and 180, no bueno. So I'm trying to find a good fuel sending unit that I can retrofit into here. That's something that's going to be universal, because these, when they fail, good luck finding another one. They're basically impossible to get. I'm lucky enough to have 2 of these, and I think this is the same as the GSX. I might have said that earlier in the video. I'm pretty sure this is the same as the 2nd gen GSX sending unit, so maybe those are available, but I don't even know if you can get the GSX ones anymore. So it'd be really cool if I could go to a universal style one, but the issue there is making it work with the gauge. So I have to figure out one that has the right resistance for the gauge, or I have to go to an aftermarket fuel gauge, which this is a huge issue for me. I really like the factory gauge cluster. Like, this car is not a race car. It's a touring car. And I want to get in this car and feel like I'm driving, a 90s Japanese car, not a race car. I really would love to put the Haltech IC7 dash in this car, but I really like the stock gauges, and I'm just not willing to give up that cool gauge cluster. So I don't know if I did put an IC7 in here, we could wire up custom fuel sending unit to that, and it could be whatever resistance I specify in the Haltech. So it'd be real easy to do a fuel gauge that way and then just ignore the stock fuel gauge. But there's no good place to mount it. So it'd be cool if you could put it like as a GTR style heads up, like right there where the vents are, but then I'd lose my AC vents. And I actually have working air conditioning on this car, and I'm not willing to give that up because I'm old and it gets sweaty in the summertime with this car. So just not willing to do that. I mean, I went the whole extra effort to put the fans in the seats. So I'm definitely not removing my air conditioning. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe I can find a way to keep the original dash and keep the fuel gauge intact. I just got to look around and see what I can find for sending units. Surely I can find, if I can find a 60 ohm sending unit that is the right depth for the tank, I'll buy 2 of them and retrofit them in. But otherwise, I don't know. We'll just have to keep thinking about it. I'm still in the planning stage for fuel system stuff. So like I said, I was really not planning on going this far into the car yet, but we got started on it and it was like, hey, let's just fix all of this stuff now. So at least it'll be easier to get the tank in and out after this. And I mean, really, it only took, what, like maybe a total of 3 hours or 4 hours of work to get the tank out. So, a weekend. So, yeah, it's Friday night. I'm going to unpin that connector, and then I'm probably going to call it a night because it's like 11 o'clock. And, yeah, hopefully tomorrow I can bleed the brakes and get that tank back in. And as long as I can get that far, none of the rest of this is a big deal. I mean, again, everything is designed to be easy on this car. The drive shaft is four bolts and nuts. The exhaust is 2 V-bands, 1 hanger, and the muffler section is still in the car because I didn't have to remove it. V-band the world. They're amazing. It makes me so happy. So much simpler than stupid flanges, because I have a bad habit of over-tightening things, and I have warped a few exhaust flanges. So yeah, V-bands are the way to go. But anyway, so yeah, hopefully by the time this is done, I will have fixed the compression fitting issue. That should make techs happy. I will have fixed the fuel pump relay melty wiring issue. I'll have fixed the access panel issue that makes things difficult as far as getting the lines hooked up. And yeah, maybe a couple other little things. Tidied up some of the stuff underneath here, changed the wiring routing. And yeah, way better. Things I still need to do is switch this stuff over to PTFE, which I can do with the tank in the car, so that's not a big deal. Change that over to the 12-bolt style fuel pump hanger at some point. And yeah, I'm not even adding another pump, at least not planning to, for a while, because the 525 is more than enough fuel for me, even on E85. But it would be nicer. It would just be a lot nicer. So, yeah. So, fix those couple of things. I need to do a little bit of tidying up for the wiring on here, because this is the 12 volt that I add, or 12 volt feed for the fuel pump that I added because I kept burning out the wires for these. And then I've got the pump grounded to the hanger, and then I just put a ground, or put my 10 gauge fuel pump ground on the flange for the hanger, and that is a good enough ground. But the problem with this is with a ring terminal, it wants to turn and hit this, and that would be a fire hazard. So I've had a piece of foam jammed in here to keep it from turning, but that foam keeps getting soaked in E85 and then turning hard. So I just want some kind of redundancy in case that comes loose and that thing starts to turn. I don't want a 10 gauge 120 amp amped setup turning and sparking under here on my fuel tank of all things. So gotta figure that out, but it's coming right along. So anyway, I'll quit rambling, but that's where we're at. Hopefully this thing will be running again by next week, and will be a little bit safer and a little bit, well, it'll run the same, but it'll be a little bit safer, and I'll be happier with it. So I'll have a lot more peace of mind for absolutely stabbing on the brake pedal. So, all right, well, that's all I got for you guys for right now. We'll end on a cool shot of the rear end of this car because it looks so good. Best Evo. I need flares. Anyway, we'll we'll end on this. So I'll see you guys next time.